God says, listen carefully, my child, because this message is being delivered to you with urgency, love, and divine attention. This is not random. This is not coincidence. This moment has been appointed, and your name was spoken before this message reached you. God says He has seen your tears, your silent prayers, the nights when you worried about money, stability, dignity, and your future. He has watched you stay quiet while others doubted you. He has heard the prayers you whispered when no one else was listening. God says, today is different. This hour is different. This message is reaching you because something has already been released in the spiritual realm, and it is now aligning in the physical. God says, you have been given a lot of money. This is not imagination. This is not false hope. This is provision prepared ahead of time. God says the money is connected to your endurance, your patience, and the way you kept faith even when answers were delayed. There were moments you almost gave up. Moments you felt forgotten. Moments you questioned why things were taking so long. God says He was never late. He was preparing you so the blessing would not destroy you, but stabilize you, heal you, and elevate you. God says this message is urgent because timing matters. Divine doors open at appointed moments, and delay can cause unnecessary struggle. God says He does not say this to frighten you, but to awaken you. Do not ignore this moment. Do not dismiss it as just another message. God says faith requires response. When He speaks, movement follows. When He calls, obedience opens doors. God says this is one of those moments where hesitation can cause you to miss alignment. God says the money connected to you is meant to relieve pressure. It is meant to restore peace. It is meant to answer prayers you thought were too small or too embarrassing to say out loud. God says He knows the bills. He knows the responsibilities. He knows who depends on you. He knows what you have been carrying alone. God says you are not wrong for wanting relief. You are not wrong for praying for abundance. You are not greedy for wanting stability. He is a provider, and provision is part of His promise. God says do not let fear talk you out of faith. Fear will say, what if this isn't real? Doubt will say, this has happened before and nothing changed. God says this time is different. This is not repetition. This is fulfillment. God says the reason urgency surrounds this message is because the enemy tries to distract right before breakthrough. He tries to make you scroll past, delay, overthink, or dismiss what God is doing. God says stay present. Stay alert. Stay connected. God says you are safe. Nothing bad is coming to you. This is not a threat. This is reassurance. God says His intention toward you is good. His plans are for peace, provision, and hope. He is not here to punish you. He is here to guide you. When you trust Him, He covers you. When you pray, He surrounds you. When you listen, He protects you. God says pray now, not out of fear, but out of trust. Speak to Him honestly. Thank Him even before you see the full manifestation. Gratitude is a key that unlocks doors faster than worry ever could. God says say, I trust you. I receive what you have prepared for me. I release fear, doubt, and delay. God says when you pray like this, alignment happens. God says this money is not just currency. It represents validation. It represents restoration. It represents a season shifting in your favor. God says some people will be surprised by how quickly things change for you. Those who underestimated you will watch you rise quietly. Those who doubted your faith will see results they cannot explain. God says remain humble, remain prayerful, and remain grounded. God says do not panic about the time. Urgency does not mean chaos. Urgency means awareness. Be calm. Be focused. God says He is with you in this moment. He has not left you alone to figure things out. He is guiding your steps even now. If your heart feels stirred, that is not anxiety. That is recognition. Your spirit knows when God is near. God says you have survived seasons that should have broken you. You endured lack without losing your kindness. You faced delay without losing your faith completely. God says He saw that, and He honors endurance. This blessing is not random. It is a response. God says release control and receive direction. You do not need to force anything. You do not need to beg anyone. What is meant for you will reach you through the right channels at the right time. God says do not compare your journey to others. Their timing is not your timing. Their path is not your path. God says stay in prayer tonight. Not long, not complicated. Just sincere. Speak to Him like a child speaks to a loving parent. Tell Him your worries. Tell Him your hopes. Tell Him you are ready. God says readiness is not perfection. Readiness is willingness. God says you are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not late. You are right on time. Heaven is not confused about your address. What has been released knows where to find you. God says trust Him fully, even if you do not understand everything yet. God says peace is coming with this provision. Rest will follow. Clarity will replace confusion. Confidence will replace fear. God says let go of the mindset that you must struggle forever. That season is ending. A new one is beginning. God says remain grateful, remain prayerful, remain gentle. Use what you receive wisely. Let it bless you and those around you. God says when He entrusts you with more, it is because He knows your heart. God says breathe. You are safe. You are guided. You are loved. This moment is covered by grace. Trust God and pray. my child, be still for a moment and let your heart breathe. This message comes not to frighten you, not to trap you with fear or pressure, but to awaken your awareness and steady your spirit. I speak to you in love, not in threats. I speak to you in truth, not in confusion. Nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. You are protected. You are held. What is meant for you cannot miss you, and what misses you was never meant to harm you. You have walked through seasons where you wondered why provision felt delayed, why effort did not always translate into reward. Why doors seemed heavy even when you knocked with sincerity. You questioned yourself. You questioned timing. Sometimes you even questioned whether heaven could see you. I want you to know this clearly now: you have never been invisible. Not once. Every tear, every prayer whispered under your breath, every night you stayed awake worrying about tomorrow has been seen and counted. When it is said that abundance has been prepared for you, understand this properly. Blessing does not always arrive as a sudden drop from the sky. Sometimes it arrives as alignment. Sometimes it arrives as an opportunity that requires courage. Sometimes it arrives as relief from an expense you feared. Sometimes it arrives as wisdom that saves you from loss. Sometimes it arrives as people being moved to help you in ways you did not expect. Money is not just currency, it is provision, stability, support, and peace. And peace is what I desire for you most. Do not let urgency make you anxious. Anxiety does not come from me. Peace does. Even when something is important, it does not need fear to move it forward. I do not rush you with panic. I guide you with clarity. Take a breath now. Feel your shoulders soften. Let your heart beat slow. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not about to lose your destiny because you pause to read, to pray, to reflect. You are safe. Nothing bad will happen to you because you trusted me. Nothing will collapse because you chose faith over fear. If something is meant to reach your hands, it will come through the right channel at the right time. I do not play games with your livelihood. I do not tease you with hope only to snatch it away. I am not a voice of manipulation. I am a voice of steadiness. I want you to examine your heart gently. Have you been carrying fear about money? Have you been afraid of missing out, afraid of not having enough, afraid that one mistake could ruin everything? These fears are heavy, and they exhaust your spirit. You were not created to live under that weight. Provision flows best when your heart is calm, grounded, and trusting. Trust does not mean doing nothing. Trust means acting from peace instead of panic. Trust means praying without desperation. Trust means making wise choices without feeling chased. Trust means knowing that even if a door closes, another can open wider. I am not limited by clocks or minutes. I am not bound by dates on a screen. I am not defeated by delays. If you have been given responsibility before increase, know that this is not punishment. It is preparation. Money tests the heart before it fills the hands. Stability tests patience before it brings relief. If you receive much, but your heart is still afraid, the blessing feels heavy. If your heart is steady, even a little feels like abundance. I want you to pray now, not with fear, but with gratitude. Thank me for what you already have. Thank me for the roof over your head, the breath in your lungs, the strength to continue. Gratitude opens channels that fear blocks. Gratitude sharpens your discernment so you recognize what is truly from me and what is not. There are voices in the world that use urgency to control, fear to trap, and promises to manipulate. That is not my voice. My voice may be firm, but it is never cruel. It may be direct, but it is never threatening. It may call you to act, but it never terrifies you into obedience. Love is the foundation of every true instruction. You do not need to chase blessings as if they are running away from you. What is aligned with your life will move toward you naturally when the time is right. Your responsibility is not to panic, but to prepare. Prepare your mind with clarity. Prepare your habits with wisdom. Prepare your heart with faith. If money is coming into your life, it will come in a way that does not destroy your peace. It will not demand that you abandon discernment. It will not ask you to betray your values. It will not require fear as payment. When something is truly from me, it strengthens you instead of draining you. Let go of the thought that one moment determines everything. Your life is not that fragile. You are not 1 second away from losing everything. You are not constantly on the edge of disaster. You are supported, even when you do not feel it. You are guided. Even when the path feels unclear, tonight, instead of watching the clock, turn inward. Speak honestly. Say what you are afraid of. Say what you hope for. Say what you need help with. I listen to sincerity, not to speed. I respond to faith, not to fear. If abundance is meant to manifest, it will come with confirmation, peace, and clarity. It will not confuse you. It will not threaten you. It will not rush you into silence. It will come in a way that allows you to breathe and say, "This makes sense. This feels right." You are not cursed. You are not forgotten. You are not about to be punished for missing something. That is not how I work. Release that thought now. Feel it leave your body. You are safe. Continue to do what is right. Continue to pray. Continue to be honest. Continue to take wise steps. Trust that what is meant for you will reach you without harming you. Rest your mind now. Let your heart settle. Nothing bad is coming to you. Goodness is not fragile. Blessing is not nervous. Love does not threaten. And you are held in love more deeply than you realize. God says, "Listen with your heart and not with fear." This message is reaching you because you have been asking, silently or aloud, for relief, for stability, for assurance that your efforts have not been wasted. God says you have carried responsibility longer than most people see. You have worried about provision, about the future, about whether what you give will ever return to you multiplied. God says He sees the nights when you lay awake calculating, praying, hoping, and trying not to lose faith. This is not an accident that you are reading this now. This is not about panic or pressure. This is about alignment. God says abundance is not always loud. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through peace, through opportunity, through the removal of fear. You have been given much already, not only in material form, but in strength, endurance, wisdom gained through hardship. God says the seed of provision has already been placed in your life. What you are being asked to do now is not to rush, not to fear missing out, not to believe that blessings disappear if you blink. God does not operate through anxiety. God operates through trust. God says when you trust Him, you open yourself to receive in the right way, at the right time, without harm to your spirit. Money, success, and opportunity are tools, not traps. God says He does not give gifts to torment His children. He gives them to bless, to stabilize, to allow generosity, and to bring rest to weary hearts. If something demands fear to be received, it is not from God. God says breathe. Slow your thoughts. Let go of the voice that tells you that everything good is fragile and will disappear if you do not act in panic. God says what is meant for you will not pass you by. What is aligned with your path cannot be stolen by time or delay. You are safe. You are guided. You are not being tested through fear right now, you are being invited into peace. God says prayer is not a transaction. It is a relationship. You do not pray to unlock rewards, you pray to remain connected. When you pray, you remember who provides. When you trust, you make space for clarity. God says some doors open when you stop forcing them and instead stand calmly in faith. God says you are learning discernment. Not every urgent voice deserves your attention. Not every promise deserves your belief. God says true blessings do not demand secrecy, panic, or isolation. They come with clarity, confirmation, and peace. If something causes your heart to race in fear, pause and pray. God will never rush you away from wisdom. God says you are protected. Nothing will go wrong with you for trusting Him. Nothing will be taken from you for choosing patience over pressure. God says He is not fragile, and His plans do not expire at midnight. Divine timing is not threatened by clocks or countdowns. God says look at how far you have come. There were moments you thought you would not survive emotionally, financially, or spiritually, and yet you are here. That did not happen by chance. That happened because grace carried you even when you were tired of believing. God says gratitude unlocks awareness. When you thank Him for what you have, you begin to notice what is growing quietly in the background. Opportunities you did not recognize before. support you overlooked, ideas that will become provision. God says abundance often arrives disguised as learning, discipline, and preparation. God says do not measure your worth by money alone. You are already valuable. Provision flows best when you remember that you are not desperate, you are deserving. God says desperation attracts confusion, but faith attracts clarity. God says keep praying, not because something bad will happen if you stop, but because prayer keeps your heart steady in a noisy world. Pray for wisdom, for peace, for discernment. Pray for the ability to recognize true opportunities and walk away from false urgency. God says you are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not excluded from blessing. What is coming to you will come in a way that strengthens you, not frightens you. It will be sustainable, not stressful. It will align with your values, not pull you away from them. God says rest your mind tonight. Release the need to chase signs. Release the fear of missing out. Trust that He knows what you need and when you need it. God says He is not testing you with threats, He is teaching you with love. God says stay open, stay prayerful, stay grounded. You are safe. You are guided. You are held. And what is meant for you will arrive in peace. Not panic. Amen. God says, my child, slow your breath and quiet your heart for a moment. This message is not here to frighten you, rush you, or pressure you. It is here because your spirit has been tired, because you have been waiting, and because you have wondered if your prayers have been heard. God says He sees every silent tear, every moment of doubt, every night you lay awake asking when relief will come. Nothing about your life has been invisible to Him. Even the moments you thought were forgotten were held gently in His hands. God says you have been learning patience in ways you never asked for. You have been learning trust while standing in uncertainty. You have been learning faith not when things were easy, but when answers felt delayed. God says this season was not meant to break you. It was meant to strengthen your inner foundation so that when blessings arrive, you will be able to carry them with wisdom, humility, and gratitude. God says abundance does not always arrive the way people expect. Sometimes it comes as money, sometimes as opportunity, sometimes as protection, sometimes as peace that money itself cannot buy. God says He does not reward panic, He responds to faith. He does not move through fear, He moves through trust. When you pray with a calm heart, when you release desperation and replace it with surrender, you align yourself with His timing. God says do not measure your worth by what you see in your bank account today. Do not believe that your value rises or falls with numbers, deadlines, or comparisons. Your value was established the moment you were created. You are not forgotten. You are not late. You are not behind. God says He is working in ways you cannot yet see, arranging paths that will make sense later, even if they feel confusing now. God says money itself is not evil, nor is it the highest gift. It is a tool, and like all tools, it must arrive at the right time. If it comes too early, it can harm. If it comes too late, it can feel discouraging. God says He understands the exact moment when provision will help rather than hurt. Trust that He knows what you need better than you know yourself. God says stop living as if one missed moment can cancel your destiny. Nothing meant for you can be stolen by time, by people, or by mistakes. What is truly yours will find you when your heart is ready to receive it. You do not need to chase blessings in fear. Blessings flow naturally when your spirit is aligned with peace. God says prayer is not a transaction. You do not pray to force His hand. You pray to open your heart. When you pray, speak honestly. Tell Him you are tired. Tell Him you are hopeful. Tell Him you are afraid. God says He listens not to perfect words, but to sincere hearts. God says remember the times you were protected without knowing it. Remember the doors that closed even though you begged them to stay open, only to realize later they would have harmed you. God says His no is often an unseen mercy, and His wait is often preparation. God says let go of the idea that urgency means danger. Sometimes urgency is simply your soul reminding you to reconnect, to breathe, to trust again. You do not need to rush God. He has never been late in the story of your life. God says you are safe. Not because nothing will ever go wrong, but because you are never alone when things do. Even in loss, even in confusion, even in delay, He remains with you. That is the promise that does not expire. God says abundance begins in the mind before it appears in the hands. When you live in gratitude for what you have, you make room for more. Amen. God says, my beloved child, pause for a moment and breathe. This message is reaching you not by accident, not by coincidence, and not because of fear, but because heaven wants your attention wrapped in peace, trust, and faith. God says this is an urgent message only for you, but urgency does not mean danger. Urgency means alignment. Urgency means timing. Urgency means that what has already been prepared for you is now close enough that your spirit can feel it stirring. God says you have been given a lot of money, not just in numbers or currency, but in provision, relief, opportunity, and release from long-standing pressure. This blessing has already been authorized. It was approved in the spiritual realm before you ever worried about it in the natural one. God says the door is open, but you must be present to walk through it. Not with panic. Not with fear. But with trust, prayer, and calm obedience. God says do not misunderstand the timing. The mention of time is not meant to scare you. It is meant to awaken you. There are moments in life where attention matters, where awareness matters, where listening matters. This is one of those moments. God says when you respond in faith, you align yourself with what is already moving toward you. Nothing is being taken away from you. Nothing bad will happen to you. You are safe. You are protected. You are covered. God says many times in your life you have ignored gentle nudges because you were tired, distracted, or hurt. God understands that. God has seen your struggles, your quiet tears, the nights you stayed awake wondering how things would work out. God says this message comes not to pressure you, but to remind you that you are not forgotten, and you are not late. God says the money spoken of here is connected to relief. Relief from debts that kept you anxious. Relief from responsibilities that felt heavier than your strength. Relief from the feeling that you were always one step behind. God says this provision is not meant to pull you away from faith, but to stabilize you so you can breathe again. Think clearly again, and pray with gratitude instead of desperation. God says do not let fear twist this message. God does not threaten His children. God reassures them. God says if you open your heart right now, if you open this message with sincerity, you are not doing it to avoid loss, but to receive clarity. The blessing does not come because you are afraid. It comes because you trust. God says remember this clearly, nothing will go wrong with you. You are safe. Even now, angels are surrounding you with calm. God says I am not asking you to run. I am asking you to listen. I am not demanding. I am inviting. I am not punishing. I am providing. God says the reason this feels urgent is because your season is shifting. You are stepping out of survival mode and into stability. Out of constant worry and into assurance. Out of asking when and into saying thank you. God says many things had to align quietly behind the scenes before this moment could arrive. People moved. Decisions changed. Delays lifted. Doors that were closed are now open. God says pray right now, not with long words, but with honest ones. Say, God, I trust you. Say, God, I receive what you have prepared. Say, God, guide me and keep my heart calm. God says when you pray like this, fear loses its grip and faith takes its place. God says do not let anyone convince you that this message is about control or panic. This message is about awareness. God often speaks softly, but sometimes He repeats Himself because He knows how easily the world distracts you. God says you are not being rushed into danger. You are being called into readiness. God says the money mentioned here will come in a way that surprises you. It may come through a decision, an approval, a return, a favor, or a sudden opening. It may not look exactly how you imagined, but it will arrive exactly when it is needed. God says do not limit the way I can bless you. God says trust me even if you do not understand everything yet. Trust me even if part of you feels skeptical. Trust me even if you have been disappointed before. God says this time is different because you are different. You have grown. You have learned. You have endured. God says I see how carefully you have held on, how you tried to stay strong for others while feeling weak inside. God says this blessing is also restoration. Restoration of confidence. Restoration of peace. Restoration of hope that felt dim. God says nothing bad is chasing you. Goodness is. Provision is. Grace is. God says the reason I ask you not to ignore this is not because something terrible will happen, but because something good is already knocking. If you are distracted, you might miss the moment to recognize it. God says be still for a moment after reading this. Do not rush away. Do not let your mind spiral. Sit quietly and feel the peace that comes when you realize you are not alone. God says I am with you. I have always been with you. God says tonight, rest with trust. Tomorrow, walk with confidence. Pray with faith, not fear. Expect with calm, not anxiety. God says what is meant for you will not pass you by. God says you are safe. You are guided. You are loved. Trust me, pray to me, and receive what I have already placed in motion for you. God says, my child, pause for a moment and breathe. This message is not coming to frighten you, not to control you, and not to burden your heart. It is coming because you are standing at a moment of awareness, a moment when your spirit is being asked to listen more deeply than usual. There are seasons in life when blessings move quietly, when opportunities arrive softly, and when abundance waits for recognition rather than force. This is one of those moments. God says, you have been prepared for increase in ways you may not fully recognize yet. This is not only about money in the physical sense, but about provision, stability, relief, and support arriving in forms that align with your life. Sometimes abundance appears as a solution. Sometimes it appears as timing. Sometimes it appears as peace replacing worry. And sometimes it appears as financial help that arrives when you least expect it but most need it. God says, do not let fear guide your response. Nothing bad will happen to you. You are safe. You are protected. You are not being threatened, and you are not being punished. This message is not about loss, it is about awareness. When the heart is open, blessings are easier to receive. When the mind is calm, clarity follows. When faith replaces panic, doors open naturally. God says, many people miss what is meant for them not because it was taken away, but because they were distracted by anxiety, doubt, or disbelief. This is why prayer matters. This is why trust matters. This is why stillness matters. You are not being rushed by God, you are being invited to pay attention. What is meant for you will not harm you, and it will not arrive through fear. God says, money is not evil, and provision is not shameful. When resources come into your life, they are meant to bring stability, rest, and the ability to breathe again. They are meant to help you care for yourself and for others. They are meant to remind you that you are not forgotten. If financial support or opportunity is approaching you, it is because your needs have been seen. God says, do not assume you are unworthy of help. Do not believe the lie that you must struggle endlessly to prove your faith. Faith is not proven by suffering alone, it is also shown by receiving with gratitude. When something good approaches you, do not push it away out of fear that it is too good to be true. Ask for discernment, not rejection. God says, this is a moment to pray sincerely, not desperately. Speak honestly. Say what you need. Say what you fear. Say what you hope for. Prayer is not a performance, it is a conversation. You do not need perfect words. You need an open heart. God listens even when your thoughts feel messy. God says, trust does not mean you stop thinking or asking questions. Trust means you place your worries down instead of carrying them alone. You are allowed to hope without panic. You are allowed to expect good without guilt. You are allowed to believe that provision can come peacefully. God says, do not let urgency turn into fear. Nothing good from God requires terror or confusion. Peace is always a sign you are moving in the right direction. If your heart feels calmer as you read this, that calm is guidance. If your breath feels easier, that ease is reassurance. God says, remember that abundance often arrives when you least expect it, but when you are most ready internally. Readiness is not about perfection, it is about willingness. Willingness to receive, willingness to trust, willingness to move forward without clinging to old fears. God says, you are not late. You are not behind. You have not missed everything. Your life is not falling apart. Even if things have felt uncertain recently, uncertainty does not mean abandonment. It often means transition. And transitions can lead to provision, clarity, and relief. God says, stay grounded tonight. Pray calmly. Thank God in advance, not out of pressure, but out of faith. Gratitude opens the heart. Peace clears the mind. Trust steadies the spirit. You do not need to rush. You need to remain present. God says, whatever form blessing takes, it will not come to harm you. It will not come to confuse you. It will not come to control you. What is meant for you will feel aligned, supported, and steady. You will recognize it not by fear, but by a quiet sense of this is okay. God says, you are watched over. You are guided. You are not alone in your concerns. Let tonight be about surrender, not panic. Let it be about faith, not fear. Let it be about peace, not pressure. God says, rest your mind. Open your heart. Pray with trust. Whatever is meant to reach you will do so in the right way and at the right time. You are safe. You are protected. And you are deeply cared for. God says, my child, listen closely and do not let your heart be distracted right now. This message is meant only for you, and it is reaching you at a very precise moment in your life. Nothing is random. Nothing is accidental. The fact that your eyes are on these words right now is already part of what God has arranged for you. Take a deep breath, Slow your thoughts, and let your spirit become calm, because this is not a message of fear but a message of divine timing, divine provision, and divine reassurance. God says you have been given a lot of money, and this is not just about numbers or currency. This is about provision that has already been approved in the spiritual realm. For a long time, you have carried responsibilities that others do not see. You have worried quietly, prayed silently, and hoped when it felt unreasonable to hope. God says He has seen every moment when you chose faith over panic, patience over anger, and prayer over complaint. Even when you felt tired, even when you felt ignored, even when you wondered if anyone understood what you were carrying, God was watching and counting every tear. This is why God is telling you not to ignore this moment. Not because He wants to threaten you, but because timing matters. There are seasons when doors open gently, and there are seasons when they open briefly. God says this is a moment of opening. If you hesitate too long, if you let doubt or distraction pull you away, you may delay what was meant to arrive now. God does not want you to miss what He has prepared, not because He will abandon you, but because He wants you to learn to recognize His voice when it calls you forward. God says the money that is connected to this message is tied to relief. It is tied to peace. It is tied to stability. It is not meant to corrupt you or burden you. It is meant to remove pressure from your life so that you can breathe again. God knows where you have been struggling. He knows the bills you look at quietly. He knows the plans you postponed because resources were not enough. He knows the help you wanted to give others but could not. God says this provision is meant to change the atmosphere around you. Do not misunderstand this message. God is not saying that everything depends on panic or fear. God says you are safe. Nothing bad will happen to you. You are protected. You are covered. You are not in danger. God is not against you. He is for you. He simply wants your attention because blessings also require awareness. When something good is placed in front of you, you must be present enough to receive it. God says, "Trust me." Trust does not mean rushing in fear. Trust means responding with faith. It means saying in your heart, "God, I believe you are guiding me, even if I don't understand everything yet." Prayer is your anchor right now. A simple prayer is enough. You do not need perfect words. You do not need long speeches. God hears sincerity. Even a whisper reaches Him. You may be wondering why God would speak about money so directly. God says because money has been one of the areas where you felt the most pressure, and He is not distant from your practical needs. God is not only present in churches and quiet rooms. He is present in your daily life, your responsibilities, your work, and your survival. He knows that financial stress can steal your sleep and cloud your joy. This is why He is addressing it now. God says you did not imagine the signs you have been seeing lately. The repeated thoughts, the unexpected reminders, the feeling that something is about to shift, those were not coincidences. They were gentle nudges to prepare your heart. God does not drop blessings into chaos. He prepares you internally so that when something arrives, it does not overwhelm you. If you feel urgency in this message, understand it correctly. It is not the urgency of punishment. It is the urgency of opportunity. Like a train that stops briefly at a station, this moment is inviting you to step forward. God says, do not let distractions make you miss it. Do not let skepticism harden your heart. Do not let past disappointments convince you that nothing good can happen quickly. God says, remember how many times you thought it was over, yet you are still here. Remember how many times you felt you would not make it, yet you did. That was not luck. That was protection. That was grace. The same God who carried you through those moments is the God speaking to you now. You are safe. Let that sink in. No curse is following you. No harm is planned for you. God is not angry with you. He is patient. He is kind. He is aware of your weaknesses, and He still chose you for this moment. Do not let fear twist this message into something it is not. God does not need to scare you to reach you. He simply needs your willingness to listen. God says, when you pray right now, do not beg. Do not panic. Just thank Him. Gratitude aligns your heart with reception. Say thank you for provision you have not yet touched. Say thank you for relief that is already on its way. Say thank you for peace that will replace worry. Gratitude opens doors that anxiety keeps closed. There are people who will not understand this message, and that is okay. This is not for everyone. This is for you. God speaks differently to each person because each heart is different. Do not compare your journey to anyone else's. What God is doing in your life has its own rhythm. God says the reason He is asking you not to ignore this is because ignoring divine nudges often comes from exhaustion, not rebellion. You have been tired. You have been overwhelmed. You have been carrying too much. God knows that. This is why He is speaking clearly now, so you do not miss something meant to help you rest. Trust God, even if part of you feels unsure. Faith does not mean the absence of doubt, it means choosing God despite it. Pray honestly. If you feel confused, tell Him. If you feel hopeful, tell Him. If you feel scared, tell Him. God is not offended by honesty. God says you are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. This moment is not here to pressure you but to invite you. Receive it calmly. Receive it prayerfully. Receive it with trust. As this time approaches, let your heart remain steady. Do not rush in fear. Do not freeze in doubt. Just stay connected to God. Stay present. Stay prayerful. What is meant for you will not miss you when your heart is open.